Done and done.
Done.
Oh, perfect. And then talk to me about, being out there on my own, 17 days. It was cold, it was hot, it was like, it was rough. I'm sleeping on the ground. There were times where I wanted to give up, but I just pushed through. Like, talk to me about the mental fortitude.
Well, if you are not mentally strong, you should not go to any mountain and spend it alone for one day, personally. You have to be mentally strong. And honestly, being mentally strong is more, what's the word? Empowering. You need to be physically strong to be in the mountains and do any kind of hunting. But if your head game is off, you might as well forget it, because the mountains will eat you up and throw you out and not even care. You're going through 90-degree weather one day, and 3 hours later, it might be 30 degrees when it gets cold. I mean, it's just such dramatic temperature changes, and it's a mental struggle, because coming from Michigan and going to Colorado and trying to chase an animal that we don't have native in our state down by where I am, So I'm chasing an animal that I don't even know anything about, but I'm going to try it because that's what I do. We go from whatever our elevation is in Michigan, which is very low, like maybe 400 to 600 in elevation, to 1,200 elevation in Colorado in the mountains. So it's a big mental struggle where you have to have a fine line. Can you do it? Can you not? But you don't really know if you can do it until you go try. And that's what I did. And it really hooked me. I did it for the last 3 years, and there's probably nothing I love more than elk hunting.
Love it. You'll be hunting moose in Alaska, so I think they're similar, right?
I've never hunted moose, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, well, you'll have an expert, so at least they'll kind of help you tracking it and stuff like that too.
Right on.
You'll all be working together. There's going to be about 8 of you. And then, so let's talk about, what do you think, when it comes to surviving in that group, what are some of the, because I need you to get jargony, you did it, we touched on it a little bit, but it's something like, it's one thing to be able to catch these animals, but if you don't know how to cut them up and to use every last bit, then you're wasting the animal. Something exactly like that shows that that's the skill that you're going to bring to this group.
Talk about all the stuff that you make. You do a lot.
The skill that I could bring to a group, a colony, whatever you guys are going to call it, is I can take an animal and I can use this harvest not only to eat, but we could take the hide and tan the hide and make clothing out of it. We could make boots. We could make socks. We could make gloves. You can, more importantly, you can make hats out of it. I've made bear hats, all kinds of stuff out of the hide. There's so much to use out of an animal that it's not just about getting the meat and then pitching the rest. You could take the horns and you can cut them up, and you can make spears. You can make knives. You can knife handles. There's so much more to a harvest than what people really understand, because it's endless what you can do with a harvest. Any harvest, with the hair, the hide, the skin, the bones. There's just so much to do, and I'm very knowledgeable of what to use it for. I can apply it to fishing skills. We could take rib cages and use for fishing, making fish cages. There's this endless amounts of stuff to use off a harvest.
Oh my God, tell me about the fish cake. So this is brilliant. No one's talked about this. So I want you to do either a quick 20, 30 seconds. So what you do is you take the rib cage of an elk or a moose or whatever it is, and you string it up and you put it in blah blah, and it becomes a fish cage. Tell me how that works.
To use some kind of rib cage off of, whether it's deer, elk, moose, whatever you want to use, just take that rib cage, and I like to intertwine some vine and some kind of roping you would need, and you're just making a basket for them where it kind of V's on the end, and the fish come in and get trapped. The rib cage is kind of, and the meat on there that can draw all kinds of just little fish and critters. What about, there's crab, there's all kinds of things that could come in here from not only the smell on the meat, but the food. And then it's just all just kind of intertwines with each other. And you don't know what you're going to catch in there, to be honest with you. So it's different.
That's great. I love that. That's like so cool. Any little things like that like show your expertise are really great. So, you know, you can be like, another thing I like to do is take blah, blah and make blah, blah.
I like to take a lot of blah, blahs and make blah, blahs. It's just how it goes. Whatever it may be, if some people, it might be trash to some people and I might be able to make something beautiful out of it. I don't know. You just put something in front of me and let my imagination run wild and see where it goes.
I love it. I love you. How would your friends describe you? My friends would describe me.
My friends would describe me as a jokester, I think. An adventurer as a jokester. That's probably the two right there. Boom. I'm a little of both. Actually, I'm a lot of both. So, yeah, I'm an adventurer as a jokester.
You're kind of like a gypsy
soul? A little bit of gypsy, maybe? I don't know.
Gypsy, Pocahontas, gypsy.
No.
Something. I don't know. She's an outdoors woman.
Yeah, I'm an outdoors woman. I don't know. I grew up with boys, so I learned to enjoy the outdoors or not see my family. So, yeah.
I love that. And can you actually I'm a tomboy, I'm an alpha female, and if you put me out in the wild, I'm going to survive.
You want to hear that from me?
Yep.
I am a tomboy, I'm an alpha female, and you put me into the wild and I'm going to survive.
Perfect. Do it one more time.
Right. I'm an alpha, I'm a tomboy, I'm an alpha female, and you put me into the wild and I'm going to survive.
Good girl. Perfect. That was brilliant. And then, hold on, I'm just reading through some of these things of yours. Oh, yeah, how did you learn taxidermy?
I learned taxidermy, gosh, it's got to be 7 years ago. And what got me into it, obviously, was my love for the outdoors. This is the main question everybody asks me is, what got me into taxidermy? And I still really don't know. I believe it just might be my love for the outdoors and bringing these animals back to life. I guess I don't know what the answer is what got me into it, because I have no background in art or any of that. I just one day woke up and I said, I think I want to learn taxidermy, and then I ran with it.
How did you learn it?
I learned taxidermy through a friend of mine who was just getting out of taxidermy. He owned his own company, and what happened is he kind of got burnt out on it, being self-employed and doing it so much. He got burnt out, and one day I met him through another friend, and he goes, yeah, I'll teach you taxidermy. So we started with deer, and then we moved on to full body like bear and some turkey stuff, and just a little bit dabbling. Whatever I didn't learn from him, I dabbled on my own and would consider myself self-taught on a lot of it.
That's amazing. You know, I think I saw a photo of you. I don't think I'm making this up, but I think there was a bear or some big animal, and it was split open in the stomach, and you had your hand like inside the animal. Am I making that up, or did I see that photo somewhere in your social media?
I might have been gutting a deer or a gator or a mule deer. I don't know. I was probably getting bloody in some sort of way with my hands in some kind of carcass. Yes.
So tell me about that. You know, like what that feels like. You know, you cut open an animal and its heart's still beating, and like, tell me what that feels like. Describe it, and then tell me what it feels like.
Okay, so for example, gutting a deer, I was always terrified to do it for so many years. And I think because I had a mental block, a game block in my head of, ew, this is gross, this smells, this is nasty, it's warm. And I was so against it. And my brother Kenny gutted deer for me for, I can't even tell you how many years. And one day I was by myself and I'm like, I don't have anybody to gut these animals. And I started doing, I'm like, wow. So you get your hands up in that carcass and you're like, this is warm. You know, when you're gutting a deer in December and it's Michigan 30-degree weather, and you're getting your hand in there and you're kind of like, man, this is kind of like a mitten, but it's freaky. It's a freaky mitten because it's squishy. You got the organs, and just, you got to be careful because if you might run into a broadhead that's lodged in a rib cage or a bone. So there's things you got to be cautious of, like you shoot it with a gun, you might spear a little bit of the rib cage, and it's sharp bone, so you have to be careful. But it's just, it's a different experience. I don't know. I still don't know if I like it or not, but it has to be done and it's part of it. So I'm not afraid to get a little bloody and get up in there.
Perfect. Oh my God. Okay, stop and start again.